And here we go. So now, now it's getting interesting. We will walk back to the end of this line, and if every block was placed correctly, we will see 4 skeleton spawner there. If not, we just wasted a lot of time and redstone. Whew. Is there a spawner inside? Yes! Yes! Let's light it up fast. Okay, up here there's a spawner. Let's check the other ones, or let's go down to this one. It worked! It worked! All 3 spawners worked! And now I'm getting killed by skeletons. Don't blow my spawners up, creeper. We got a quad skeleton spawner, guys. Oh, and we got shot off. So this was back in 2013 when we first showed how to generate spawners in vanilla Minecraft. As it has been quite a while since then, here's a quick recap of how spawner generation works. As you probably know, the Minecraft world is made out of 16 by 16 by 256 parts called chunks. Chunks do not exist until they are loaded for the very first time. When that happens, the rough terrain gets generated. If we would stop there, the Minecraft world would look like this. But of course, there's more. Each time a 2x2 grid of chunks is loaded simultaneously, for the first time additional decoration is placed in between those chunks. This step is usually referred to by world population or decoration. The world population contains plants, trees, waterfalls, small water and lava lakes, but also structures like mineshafts or villages. And of course also dungeons. For them the game picks 8 positions mainly based on the world seed, but only generates them if the blocks around these positions match a certain pattern. So by changing the blocks in a chunk of a 2x2 grid before fully loading it for the first time, we can influence where and how spawners generate. Hello, this is Panda, and I'm here together with Spire.
Hey!
And today we invited Myron.
Hello.
He showed how to generate pig spawners in Minecraft 1.8 recently. And in this video we will show you how to do the same in Minecraft 1.11.
Originally Panda and me planned to show pig spawner generation as this year's April Fool's video, and spent the last few months preparing it. We even gave a little hint on our recent Enderman melon block farm video, where Mary held a mob spawner and I had a raw pork chop in my hand.
But now that Myron released a video on pig spawners, an April Fool's video would not have caused the right amount of surprise and confusion anymore. So we decided to not make a double bluff April Fool's video this year. Also, Myron's method is a lot simpler than ours would have been.
I will now explain how the method I used to generate pig spawners works. To understand that method, we will first have to understand a bit about piston behavior. When a piston wants to extend, he first makes a list of the positions of the blocks he wants to move. So if this piston right here wants to extend, then he will go through those blocks and denote the position of each of those blocks in a list. And I will use those white stained glass blocks to represent the positions which this piston remembered. After the piston has made his list, he will go through the list to each position and move a block that is at that position. So the piston will first move the first iron block right here, and I will use this glass block to represent block 36, that's just a moving block. And then he will go to the second position and move a block, and to the third position, and he will move all those blocks one after each other, and at the end he will also generate a piston head and becomes an extended piston base. Now a bug occurs if we place one of the blocks in this position right here after the piston has already made its list. Then a bug will occur because the piston will now not check whether this block is movable, but he will just move this block. So if we had an unmovable block right here, then this block would not get moved because the piston would see that it's unmovable, so it would not get in the list. But if we place an unmovable block after the list has already been made, then the piston will move the block because its position is in the list of all blocks that the piston wants to move, and so he will just move this block. So if we were to replace one of the blocks right here, after the piston has already made his list, then this block would get moved by the piston even though it's unmovable. This glitch allows us to move an unmovable block if we have just generated him. So if we generate an unmovable block after the list has been made, then we can move him. Now why do we want to move a spawner? We want to move a spawner because if we move a spawner, then it will lose its child entity. So if we have a piston right here, and he makes a list of blocks he wants to move, and we want to generate a spawner in the list in the corresponding position. And I will explain in a moment how exactly I generate the spawner. when the piston will move the spawner. And the important bit is that the tile entity of the spawner does not get moved. The tile entity of the spawner just gets destroyed, while the spawner block gets moved. So after the spawner has been moved, we will get a tile entity-less spawner, and a tile entity-less spawner will instantly convert into a big spawner. How we generate the spawner? We generate the spawner using Panda's method, which he already explained previously in this video. And I do it by just populating a chunk, so we will have a piston right here. The piston will generate a list of blocks he wants to move, and then each of the blocks will move one by one. So first this block right here will move over here, and when this blocks move over here, then this block will send out block updates. He will only send out block updates in 1.8. In 1.9 he will wait a bit longer before he sends out block updates, so this specific part only works in 1.8. Now when this piston moves over here, then he sends out a block update and this chunk gets loaded. When this chunk gets loaded, then the chunk population will occur, which Panda already explained, and then all these blocks will get destroyed and we will get a spawner in the relevant position. Right here, I will just use the obsidian block instead of the spawner. And then the piston will move the spawner, then we get a big spawner. So that's basically how my method works in 1.8.
So in Minecraft 1.8, pistons will move blocks in this way. First, they create a list of the positions of the blocks that need to be moved. Then the game goes through that list one by one, gets the block state for each position, places down the moving block and causes the updates around it. One block after the other. In Minecraft 1.9, it will also start with creating the list of the positions. But after that, it will first go through the entire list and take note of all block states in all these positions. Then it will place down all the moving blocks without causing updates, and when that's done, it will go through the list of the positions again and finally cause the updates. In 1.9, the block updates are caused at the very end, so we cannot rely on block updates to load the chunk and trigger the spawner generation anymore. But instead, we can load the chunk when the list of positions is created. While the game creates a list, it needs to check if the blocks can get moved or not. When the block it wants to check is located in an unloaded chunk, the game will load that chunk, and if there is a 2x2 grid loaded simultaneously for the first time, it will also trigger the world population as usual. After that's all done and the spawner is generated, the piston takes note of the block states, also containing the spawner now. It then places them down as moving blocks, which causes the spawner to lose its tile entity and reset to a pig spawner. Now, there's one more issue to consider. So far we only looked at how pistons move the blocks. However, when a piston receives a block update, while being powered, it does not move the blocks right away. Instead, the game will just check if it can extend and remember to do so later in the tick. But we don't want to check whether it can extend or not to load the chunk already, because then we couldn't get the spawner position on the list of blocks to move later on. To solve this, I first left a gap in front of the piston and let falling sand drop into it after the game remembered to extend the piston already. After explaining this setup to Myron, he had the idea to use a retracting piston and a slime block instead, as retracting pistons don't need to check any blocks to know that they can retract. And that's all with the logic. All that's left to do is calculating a spawner position, building a copper with a retracting piston attached to it and sending it in. I built a second flying machine to load the needed chunks and trigger the first one to generate the spawner. A world download can be found in the video description. Also, there's a link to Myron's channel and to a video in which he explained the 1.8 way to generate pig spawners in more detail on screen now. He also shows all sorts of piston bugs such as block event sharing, rail duplication, or how to break blocks with pistons. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!